What's up, my people? Thank you for joining me for the first ever Old Head album review. Yeah, I'm going to occasionally do these whenever an album comes out that I'm excited about, and today, that very thing has happened. If you listen to my podcast, on the very first episode, I talked about this particular album and how I was looking forward to it coming out this year, and today, it happened. That album is The Devil You Know by LA Guns. Now, if you're not quite sure about who LA Guns is or need a little refresher, let me help you out. So, LA Guns was formed in 1983 by Tracii Guns. In fact, an early incarnation of that band had Axl Rose as the lead singer, and that incarnation actually became Guns N' Roses. And then Tracii Guns left to reform LA Guns, and then he ended up recruiting singer Phil Lewis from the band Girl, and they released their self-titled debut in 1988, a fucking classic hard rock record. Can't say enough good things about it. And then in 1989, they had a good amount of success with their second album, Cocked and Loaded, especially with the song The Ballad of Jane. You've probably heard it. And that album and the first three albums actually together, self-titled, Cocked and Loaded, Hollywood Vampires, those three are fucking classic hard rock albums. I can't say enough good things about all three of them. That classic lineup was so good. And then after that third record in the 90s, there was some drama, band members coming and going. And then finally in the early 2000s, Tracii Guns actually left his own band to form another version of LA Guns. But that doesn't really matter, because the version of LA Guns for a while in the 2000s that actually mattered to me was Phil Lewis's version. He put together a pretty fucking great band, and they did two really good albums that I highly recommend. One of them was from 2005, that is Tales from the Strip, and then the other one came out in 2012, and that was Hollywood Forever. Both really good albums. But then, in 2016, Tracii Guns and Phil Lewis reunited, and then they put out the album The Missing Piece in 2017. Now, that album was a strong album. I wasn't in love with it, but I loved that those two guys were making music together again, and it showed a lot of promise for where they could go. And so now we get to hear today where they have gone. So let's talk about The Devil You Know. So the first two songs they released from this album were Stay Away and Rage. Both really killer songs, and those are the first two songs on the album, and it's a great beginning because right out of the gate, there's energetic hard rock and shit that's just in your face, and it sounds like they haven't even taken a day off. It's fucking killer. And really, the majority of the album, the thing that is really great to hear is the fact that even 30 years down the line, Phil Lewis still sounds like he's right out of 1989, and Tracii Guns is still showing that he is a totally underrated guitar hero. His shit is awesome. Some of his solos are fucking amazing, and he's great at writing some really great riffs. But he is also good at writing some kind of derivative riffs. There's riffs on this that you could easily go, I think that I've heard that before. And it's probably because you have. But really, when you're talking about working in this little bubble of classic hard rock, there's not a whole lot of new shit that you can do. So I totally forgive them for that. But there is a little bit on here, like which was the one that I was thinking of, Loaded Bomb, third song on the album. I really like it, but I can't deny that the main riff sounds like the riff from Bitches Back from their self-titled album 31 years ago or whatever. And then the title track, The Devil You Know, it just sounds like a Black Sabbath song with Phil Lewis singing over it, which that's not a bad thing at all, but sometimes I want a little bit more originality than that. But my gripes, aside from that, are kind of small. The other little gripe I have is that the album production kind of sounds all over the place. Sometimes the snare drum is buried, sometimes the guitars are buried, sometimes Phil Lewis's vocals are buried, or sometimes the vocals are too loud. It just seems like there's inconsistencies with the production. And that brings me to my point that I argue a lot, which is it's good to not overlook how important production and engineering is and how hard it is to do. You have to have a great fucking ear to make an amazing record that sounds amazing on somebody's dinky ass computer speakers, and when somebody's listening to it on headphones, when somebody's listening to it on vinyl on their record player through bookshelf speakers. It's got to sound good everywhere. And so I don't really fault him too much, because I'd rather it sound, did I say rather? That's not even a word. I'd rather it sound raw than for it to sound all fucking compressed and overblown and shit. So it's a small gripe. Let's get back to the shit that's good about this album. And the shit that's good about this album is the fact that if you like LA Guns and you like that style of 80s hard rock, you're going to fucking love this album. This album stands up with all of their material from back in the day. It's solid, no bullshit rock and roll, which is badly needed today. And not only that, it kicks the ass of pretty much anything out there that's passing as rock and roll today. So my minor gripes aside, this is a solid fucking album. And I'm not going to get into a rating system or anything like that. I'm just going to go with something simple. I don't know, let's do a horns up or a middle finger up. This one definitely gets a horns up. So go check it out. The Devil You Know, LA Guns, one of my favorite bands. Another solid album. Do it.